The day I discovered my daughter had been stealing my life started like any other Tuesday. I was watering the hydrangeas when my neighbor leaned over the fence and asked, "Elizabeth, do you even know what your daughter does for a living?" I should have said yes. I should have defended Claire immediately. But something in Mrs. Watkins' tone, half pity, half warning, made me freeze with the garden hose still running water pooling around my feet. That question would shatter everything I thought I knew about the daughter I'd raised, the life I'd built, and the woman I'd become. Setup: the controlled life. My name is Elizabeth Harper. I'm 58 years old, a widow of 6 years, and until 3 months ago I would have told you my daughter was my best friend. I would have been wrong. It started small, the way these things always do. After David died, Claire began visiting more often. At first I was grateful. The house felt too quiet without him, too full of memories and empty spaces. Claire's brisk efficiency, her take-charge attitude, it felt like life rafts being thrown to a drowning woman. "Mom, you shouldn't be handling Dad's paperwork alone," she'd said one evening, her manicured hand already reaching for the stack of bills on my kitchen table. "You're grieving. Let me take care of the details." I let her. "Those neighbors are gossips, Mom. Don't let them drag you into their drama." I nodded. "You don't need to join that book club. Those women just want someone to complain to." I stayed home. Each concession felt reasonable in isolation. Helpful even. Claire had always been the responsible one, the daughter who called every Sunday, who remembered birthdays, who made partner at her real estate firm before 35. When she said she was protecting me, I believed her. But protection, I would learn, can be another word for prison. The world shrinks. By the second year after David's death, my world had contracted to the size of my house and garden. Phone calls from old friends went unanswered because Claire said they just wanted to gossip about widowhood. Invitations to church socials gathered dust on my counter. Even my weekly coffee dates with Sarah Chen, my friend of 20 years, stopped after Claire commented that Sarah seemed to ask a lot of questions about your finances. I told myself I was content. I had my roses, my library books, my weekly visits from Claire. What else did a woman my age need? The neighborhood still existed beyond my windows. I could see Mrs. Watkins tending her garden, hear the Martinez children playing basketball, watch Mr. Patterson walking his golden retriever at precisely 6 p.m. But I observed it all like watching a movie separated by invisible glass. Claire approved of the distance. "You're vulnerable, Mom," she'd say, squeezing my shoulder with just a little too much pressure. "Older women living alone are targets. I'm just making sure no one takes advantage." The irony would hit me later like a freight train. The business trip. "I'll be in Chicago for 5 days, Claire announced one March afternoon, scrolling through her phone as she spoke. "The Riverside Properties deal. Big commission if I close it." She handed me a printed list before she left instructions typed in her precise font. "Pay the water bill on Wednesday. Don't answer calls from unfamiliar numbers. Order groceries from the approved list." And at the bottom, underlined twice, "Don't discuss personal matters with neighbors." The way she said personal matters made it sound like a threat disguised as concern. After her car disappeared down the street, I stood in my kitchen and felt something I hadn't experienced in years: possibility. The silence wasn't oppressive. It was open, breathable, mine. I spent that first day doing nothing revolutionary. I made coffee too strong, ate ice cream for lunch, left dishes in the sink overnight. Small rebellions that felt enormous. On the second day, I went outside. The garden conversation. The late March sun was warm on my shoulders as I knelt beside the rose bushes, pruning shears in hand. I'd neglected them, brown edges curled on leaves, spent blooms hanging like faded memories. I was so focused on cutting away the dead growth that I didn't hear Mrs. Watkins approach. "Elizabeth," I looked up. Margaret Watkins stood at the fence in her trademark straw hat, but her usual smile was absent. Her eyes, sharp and blue beneath the brim, carried something heavy. "May I come in for a moment?" My stomach twisted. In the 2 years since Claire had forbidden neighborly chats, Mrs. Watkins and I had exchanged only waves and weather comments. This felt different, deliberate. Of course. We sat on the porch. I poured lemonade with trembling hands, not sure if I was nervous or excited. Mrs. Watkins watched me with the patient expression of someone who'd lived 83 years and learned when to wait. Finally, she spoke. "I wasn't going to say anything, Elizabeth. It's not my place, and Lord knows I've been called a gossip enough times to make me cautious." She paused, choosing her next words carefully. But watching you these past 2 years, watching what she's done to you, I can't stay silent anymore. What who's done? But I knew. Of course I knew. Your daughter. The words hung between us like smoke. The revelation. Mrs. Watkins didn't rush. She told me about conversations she'd overheard at the grocery store at church at the community center. About elderly clients of Claire's who'd signed over properties for investment purposes and never seen their money again. About a woman 3 streets over named Dorothy Chen, Sarah's mother, who'd trusted Claire with her late husband's insurance payout and lost everything. Sarah tried to warn you, Mrs. Watkins said softly. That's why Claire cut her off. My throat went dry. Sarah never said, because your daughter threatened legal action if Sarah contacted you, called it defamation. Each revelation landed like a stone in my chest. Mrs. Watkins spoke of others, Mr. Harrison, who'd lost his family home. The Rodriguez family, whose mother signed documents she couldn't read. A pattern of charm manipulation and legal paperwork that left people bewildered and broke. But that's not all. Mrs. Watkins continued, her weathered hand reaching for mine. I've seen the way she talks to you, the way she's isolated you. Elizabeth, honey, you're not the first parent this has happened to, and you won't be the last. But you deserve to know who you're dealing with. I wanted to defend Claire. I wanted to say Mrs. Watkins was mistaken jealous, spreading exactly the kind of gossip Claire had warned me about. But something stopped me. A small voice I'd been ignoring for months. I'd seen flashes of it. The way Claire spoke to waiters when her order was wrong. How her eyes went cold when I questioned her financial help. The time I mentioned wanting to look through David's old files and she'd physically blocked the cabinet saying, "They're already organized, Mom, don't mess up my system." My system. Not our files, not Dad's papers. Her system. Why are you telling me this now? I whispered. Mrs. Watkins squeezed my hand. Because she's gone for 5 days and this might be the only chance you get. Whatever hold she has on you, it's about to tighten. I've seen this before. They start by isolating you, then they move in for complete control. Financial, social, emotional. She stood to leave, then turned back. Check your paperwork, Elizabeth. Really check it. And if you find what I think you'll find, call Paul Emerson. He handled your house purchase, didn't he? He's honest and he's seen this before. After she left, I sat frozen on the porch until the lemonade grew warm and the ice melted. The investigation begins. That night I couldn't sleep. I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, hearing Mrs. Watkins' words echo. Check your paperwork. At 2 a.m., I gave up and went to the study. The filing cabinet sat in the corner, the one Claire had organized to help after David died. I'd been grateful then. One less burden during those fog-filled months of grief. Now my hands shook as I opened the drawer. The first folder was labeled Utilities in Claire's precise handwriting. Inside bills stamped paid, all in order. Nothing unusual. The second folder, Insurance. My health insurance, the house insurance, car insurance. All current. But Claire's name appeared on every policy as Authorized Representative. When had I agreed to that? The third folder stopped my breath, Legal Documents. Power of attorney signed by me 18 months ago. I didn't remember signing it. Joint ownership of my checking account added 3 months after David died. The house deed, my house, the one David and I bought in 1992, now listed both my name and Claire's. I pulled out paper after paper, each one a piece of my life signed away. Some signatures looked like mine. Others, I held one up to the light, squinting at the loops and curves. Had I really written that? Or had grief and trust made me careless? The clock read 4 a.m. when I finally closed the cabinet. I felt hollowed out, like something essential had been scooped from my center. I made coffee and sat at the kitchen table as dawn crept through the windows. The logical part of my brain offered explanations Claire was helping. You were grieving. This is normal for adult children to manage aging parents' affairs. But I wasn't aging. I wasn't incapacitated. I was 58, healthy, sharp. I was controlled. The phone call. At 9 a.m., I did something I hadn't done in over a year. I called my son. Nathan lived in Oregon with his wife and 2 kids. We'd drifted after David died, or rather Claire had wedged herself between us. Always with good reasons. Nathan was too busy with his own family to bother. He'd never understood the complexity of estate management. Once Claire had mentioned Nathan asked inappropriate questions about the inheritance, so she'd handled it directly to avoid conflict. Now, hearing his surprised voice on the other end of the line, I realized how thoroughly I'd been cut off. "Mom, is everything okay?" "Nathan, I didn't know how to start. When Claire contacted you about Dad's estate, what did she say?" A long pause. "How did you know about that?" My heart sank. "Tell me." He explained that Claire had called him 6 months ago with documents about streamlining the inheritance process. When he'd asked to review them with a lawyer first, she'd accused him of not trusting family. When he'd suggested we all sit down together, him, me, and Claire, she'd told him I was too fragile for that kind of stress, and that he was being difficult for no reason. After that, Claire stopped taking his calls. When Nathan tried to reach me directly, Claire said I needed space from family drama. "I thought you were upset with me," Nathan said quietly. "Claire made it sound like you didn't want to hear from me." "Nathan, I never said that. I never even knew about those documents." Another pause, heavier this time. "Mom, what's going on?" I told him. Not everything, I was still processing it myself, but enough. When I finished, the silence stretched so long I thought the call had dropped. Finally, "Mom, I want you to do something for me. Go to your bedroom right now." "What? Just do it, please." Confused, I walked to the bedroom phone pressed to my ear. "Open your nightstand drawer, the one with Dad's watch." I did. Inside lay David's watch, some old photographs, a leather-bound journal I'd kept during our first year of marriage. "Is there a blue folder underneath the journal?" Nathan asked. My hand trembled as I moved the journal. There it was, a blue folder I'd never seen before. "How did you know this was here?" "Because Claire told me she put it there for safekeeping." "Open it." Inside were documents I'd never signed, or rather documents with my forged signature. A will revision naming Claire as sole executor and primary beneficiary, a transfer of David's life insurance policy, and most chilling preliminary paperwork for a conservatorship. "Nathan, what is this?" "It's Claire's insurance policy," he said, his voice tight with controlled anger. "If you ever tried to push back, she could claim you were incompetent. She could take everything legally." I sat on the bed, the folder shaking in my hands. "Mom, you need to act fast. She's coming back in 3 days, right?" "Yes." "Then you have 72 hours to protect yourself." The decision. After Nathan hung up, promising to fly out if I needed him, I sat in my bedroom surrounded by evidence of my daughter's betrayal. I could ignore it. Pretend I'd never looked. When Claire returned, life would continue as before. Comfortable, controlled, safe. Or I could fight. The woman I'd been 2 years ago would have chosen silence, would have trusted that Claire's intentions were good, that this was all a misunderstanding, that family loyalty meant accepting whatever came. But that woman had been slowly erased, page by page, signature by signature. I stood and walked to the bathroom mirror, really looked at myself for the first time in months. I saw the lines grief had etched the gray hair I'd stopped coloring because Claire said it was age-appropriate. I saw exhaustion in my eyes, but underneath it something else was stirring. Anger. Not the hot, explosive kind. The cold, clarifying kind that burns away fog and reveals truth. I returned to the study and pulled out every document. Photographed each page with my phone. Nathan had walked me through it. Then I called Paul Emerson's office and left a message. "Paul, it's Elizabeth Harper. I need your help. It's urgent." He called back within an hour. "Elizabeth, I've been hoping to hear from you." He said, his elderly voice warm but serious. "I've heard some concerning things about your situation." "From who?" "Margaret Watkins attends my wife's church. She's worried about you. And between you and me, I've had 3 former clients of your daughter's contact me about potential fraud." My hands gripped the phone tighter. "Can you see me this afternoon?" "I'll make time." Cliffhanger ending. I hung up and looked at the clock. Claire would call soon for her daily check-in, another thing I'd stopped questioning. In 2 days, she'd be home and she'd know immediately that something had changed. But I was changing faster. I made one more call to a locksmith. "I need my locks changed, today if possible." As I waited for Paul's appointment time, I sat on the porch with fresh coffee and watched the neighborhood. Mrs. Watkins was watering her garden. The Martinez kids were shooting hoops. Mr. Patterson walked his dog. Normal life happening all around me. And for the first time in 2 years, I wasn't watching it through glass. I was preparing to step back into it. My phone buzzed. Claire's name lit up the screen. I stared at it, letting it ring once, twice, 3 times. Then I did something that terrified and exhilarated me in equal measure. I declined the call. The phone stopped buzzing. 3 missed calls from Claire appeared on my screen, followed by a text. Mom, why aren't you answering? Is everything okay? My thumbs hovered over the keyboard. 2 years of conditioning screamed at me to respond immediately, to apologize, to explain. Instead, I set the phone face down on the table and watched my hands. They weren't shaking anymore. 20 minutes later, another text. I'm worried. If I don't hear from you in an hour, I'm calling the police for a wellness check. There it was, the threat wrapped in concern, the tool she'd sharpened over months of training me to respond on command. I picked up the phone and typed, I'm fine. Busy with gardening. Talk later. Short, unrevealing. The kind of response she'd trained me to give to everyone else. Her reply came instantly. What's wrong? You sound different. I didn't answer. Paul Emerson's office. Paul Emerson's office sat above the old pharmacy on Main Street, unchanged since David and I had signed our first mortgage there 30 years ago. The wooden stairs creaked familiarity under my feet, and the frosted glass door still read Emerson & Associates, S. 1978. Paul himself had aged into his 80s with the kind of sharp-eyed dignity that made people underestimate him. When I entered, he stood from behind a desk buried in organized chaos. Papers, law books, a coffee mug that said World's Okayest Lawyer. Elizabeth, he gestured to a worn leather chair. I'm glad you called. I sat and pulled out my phone, hands surprisingly steady as I showed him the photographs of documents. He examined each one in silence, his expression growing darker. Power of attorney, joint accounts, property deed modification. He looked up at me over his reading glasses. Elizabeth, when did you sign these? I don't remember signing most of them. The power of attorney, maybe she said it was just in case after David died. But the others, I swallowed hard. Paul, I found documents in my bedroom with my signature that I know I didn't sign. Show me. I pulled out the blue folder Nathan had told me about. Paul studied the forged will, holding it up to the light, comparing the signature to legitimate documents. This is fraud, he said quietly. Clear prosecutable fraud. The word hung in the air like a verdict. But she's your daughter. He continued, setting the papers down carefully. Before we proceed legally, you need to decide how far you're willing to go. This could mean criminal charges, Elizabeth. It could mean losing her entirely. I thought about that. Really thought about it. Paul, I think I lost her a long time ago. Or maybe, I paused, the truth forming as I spoke it. Maybe I never really knew her at all. He nodded slowly. Then here's what we need to do immediately. First, we revoke that power of attorney today. I'll file it with the county by 5 p.m. Second, we remove her name from every account and property document. Third, we establish a trust with you as sole trustee. Fourth, he leaned forward, we document everything, every conversation, every text, every interaction from this point forward. She comes back in 2 days, I said. Then we work fast. The locksmith. By 4 p.m., a locksmith named Mike was installing new deadbolts on my front and back doors. He was younger than my son, with kind eyes and calloused hands. Divorce? He asked carefully, not looking up from his work. Something like that. He nodded. I did 3 of these last month, women changing locks on their own houses. You want to know what I tell them? I waited. This lock right here. He held up the new deadbolt. It's not just keeping someone out. It's reminding you every time you use it that you're keeping yourself in. Safe. In control. His words settled into my chest like stones building a foundation. When he finished, he handed me 3 keys. Give copies to anyone you trust. Don't give them to anyone you don't. After he left, I stood at my front door and locked it, unlocked it, locked it again. The sound was different, sharper, more final. The click of a door closing on one life and opening to another. The bank. Wednesday morning, I walked into First National Bank for the first time in 2 years. The last time Claire had been with me, her hand on my elbow, her voice in my ear explaining why it was easier if she managed things. Now I sat across from a young financial advisor named Amanda Chen. The name clicked. Are you related to Sarah Chen? I asked. Her expression shifted recognition and something harder. She's my mother. I'm so sorry about what happened with my daughter. Amanda's professional smile tightened. Mrs. Harper, I'm going to be honest with you. When I saw your name on my schedule, I almost passed you to another advisor. But my mother said if you ever came in alone, I should help you. Sarah said that... She said you were Claire's first victim, not her accomplice. Amanda pulled up my accounts on her screen. Let's see what we're dealing with. What we were dealing with was systematic theft. Joint accounts Claire had been managing showed regular transfers to accounts in her name. Small amounts at first, 200 here, 500 there. Easy to miss. Then larger, 2,000 and 5,000. In 18 months, nearly 47,000 had been moved. But I get statements, I said weakly. Amanda turned her screen toward me. These statements are going to a P.O. box registered in your name. When did you open that? I didn't. She typed rapidly. The request came through Claire's email using your online banking login. It was approved because she had power of attorney. Every revelation was another brick removed from the foundation I'd thought was solid. Can we reverse it? I asked. Some of it. We'll need to file fraud claims and I'll need you to sign affidavits. But Mrs. Harper, she paused. This is going to get ugly. Your daughter will be contacted. There will be an investigation. I thought of the new locks on my doors. Do it, the calm before. That night I cooked dinner for the first time in weeks. Nothing fancy, just pasta with tomatoes from my garden garlic bread, a glass of wine. I set one place at the table instead of leaving room for Claire's unexpected visits. As I ate, I made a list on a legal pad. Things I've lost. $47,000. My friend Sarah. Weekly coffee dates. Book club. Church socials. My son's trust. My own voice. Things I'm taking back. My house deed being corrected. My money accounts frozen, new ones opened. My choices, every single one. My life. The second list was shorter, but it felt heavier, more real. My phone buzzed. Claire again. Mom, you're being weird. I'm coming home early. Be there tomorrow night. My appetite vanished. Tomorrow night? I'd hoped for one more day. I typed back, I'll be here. Claire's return. She arrived at 7:30 p.m. on Thursday, a full day earlier than planned. I watched from the window as her Mercedes pulled into the driveway with aggressive precision. She sat for a moment staring at the house before getting out. When she tried her key, it didn't work. I watched her try twice more, her movements becoming sharper. Then she knocked hard, demanding. I took my time answering. Mom, her smile was bright, practiced, but her eyes were calculating. My key doesn't work. I changed the locks. The smile froze. You what? I changed the locks. This is my house. For 3 seconds we stood there. Then her expression rearranged itself into concern. Mom, why would you do that? Did something happen? Are you okay? The performance was flawless. If I hadn't spent the last 3 days uncovering the truth, I might have believed her. Come in, Claire. We need to talk. She followed me to the kitchen, and I saw her eyes scanning, looking for signs of what had changed. I'd cleaned out her organizational system in the study, removed her spare clothes from the guest room, taken down the photographs where she'd positioned herself between me and David like she was erasing him and inserting herself. Coffee, I offered. Mom, what's going on? You're acting strange. I poured 2 cups and sat down. She remained standing, her posture defensive. I know about the money, I said simply. Her face went blank. What money? The $47,000 you transferred from my accounts to yours. That's Mom, that's not. She laughed high and brittle. Is this what Mrs. Watkins told you? She's senile, she makes things up. It's what the bank told me. And my lawyer. The word lawyer landed like a physical blow. Her expression flickered surprise, anger, fear, then back to concern so fast I almost missed it. You hired a lawyer, Mom, someone's taking advantage of you. Don't you see they're trying to turn you against me, probably so they can… Paul Emerson, you remember him. He handled our house purchase 30 years ago. That stopped her. Paul wasn't some stranger she could discredit. I also know about the forged documents, the fake will, the conservatorship papers you were preparing. Claire's mouth opened-closed. For the first time in my memory, she had no response ready. Nathan told me where to find them, I added. Her face flushed red. Nathan has no right to interfere. Nathan is my son. You had no right to cut him out of my life. She slammed her hand on the counter. I was protecting you. Both of you were going to fight over Dad's money, and you were too fragile to handle it, so You stole from me. I managed for you. Her voice rose, the mask cracking. Do you have any idea how much work it's been keeping everything together? The bills, the taxes, making sure you don't make stupid decisions. I've sacrificed my time, my energy. You stole $47,000. That was reimbursement for everything I've done. There it was, the truth beneath the performance. Get out of my house, Claire. She stared at me like I'd slapped her. What get out? Mom, you're not thinking clearly. You're confused someone's manipulating you. The only person who's been manipulating me is standing in my kitchen right now. Her expression went cold. The concerned daughter vanished, replaced by something calculating and dangerous. You're making a huge mistake, she said quietly. I'm the only one who cares about you. Those people, your lawyer, the neighbors, even Nathan, they don't love you like I do. If this is love, I don't want it. She grabbed her purse movements sharp and controlled. At the door, she turned back. You're going to regret this. When you're alone and confused and no one wants to deal with you, you'll remember that I was the one who tried to help. Goodbye, Claire. After she left, I locked the new deadbolt and listened to her car peel out of the driveway. Then I walked to the bathroom and threw up. The escalation. For 2 days, nothing happened. No calls, no texts, no drive-bys. The silence felt ominous. On Saturday morning, I found out why. A white sedan pulled up to my house at 9 a.m. 2 people emerged, a woman in a navy blazer and a man with a clipboard. They walked to my door with the careful confidence of officials. My stomach dropped before they even knocked. Mrs. Harper, I'm Jennifer Walsh from Adult Protective Services. This is my colleague Tom Brennan. We've received a report of concern about your welfare. May we come in? Claire had made her countermove. The investigation. I let them in because refusing would make me look exactly like what Claire had claimed: incompetent, confused, in need of intervention. Jennifer and Tom sat on my couch with practiced ease, making the interrogation feel like a friendly chat. Mrs. Harper, we understand you've recently made some significant financial changes, Jennifer began. New bank accounts, legal revocations, changing locks. Can you tell us about that? I discovered my daughter was stealing from me. Tom wrote something down. And who helped you discover this? I discovered it myself. My lawyer confirmed it. Paul Emerson, correct. Jennifer consulted her notes. He's 84 years old. How did you connect with him? The implication was clear. You're both too old to be making these decisions. He's been our family lawyer for 30 years. His age doesn't affect his competence any more than mine does. Jennifer smiled, placating, unconvinced. Of course. We're just trying to understand the situation. Your daughter Claire has expressed serious concerns about your mental state. She says you've been isolated, paranoid, making accusations that seem out of character. Has she told you about the $47,000? She explained that she's been managing your finances at your request and that some confusion about transfers has led to misunderstandings. It's not a misunderstanding. It's theft. The bank is filing fraud charges. Tom leaned forward. Mrs. Harper, I have to ask, have you been feeling depressed, anxious? Sometimes grief can affect our judgment years after a loss. I understood the game now. Every answer would be twisted. If I was calm, I was in denial. If I was angry, I was unstable. If I provided evidence, I was being manipulated by others. I'd like to speak to your supervisor, I said clearly. Jennifer blinked. I'm sorry. You came here based on a report from the person I'm accusing of financial abuse. That's a conflict of interest. I want to speak to your supervisor and I want my lawyer present. For the first time, their professional masks slipped. Tom glanced at Jennifer. That's your right, Jennifer said carefully, but it might raise flags that you're being defensive. I'm not being defensive. I'm being smart. If you want to continue this conversation, we do it with proper oversight. They left 20 minutes later after I'd refused to sign anything or answer more questions. Through the window, I watched them sit in their car for 10 minutes, making calls, writing reports. This was Claire's strategy. If she couldn't control me directly, she'd have the state do it for her. Paul's response. I called Paul immediately. He answered on the second ring. They just left, I said. APS, I was expecting that. Claire filed a report yesterday claiming you're being financially exploited by me. What? It's a classic tactic. Accuse your accuser first. How did the interview go? I told him everything. Good, he said when I finished. You did exactly right. I'm filing a formal complaint against Claire with the state bar. She can't practice real estate with fraud allegations hanging over her. And I'm requesting an independent evaluation of your mental capacity. Will that help? Elizabeth, you're 58 years old, you garden, you manage a household. You hired a lawyer and navigated complex financial fraud on your own. Any competent evaluator will confirm you're sharp as a tack, but we need that documentation to fight back. What happens now? Now Claire will escalate. She's losing control, and people like her don't surrender peacefully. You need to be ready. The community rallies. That evening, Mrs. Watkins appeared at my door with a casserole and 3 other women I recognized from the neighborhood. "We heard what happened," she said simply. "May we come in?" They arranged themselves in my living room like a council of war. Besides Mrs. Watkins, there was Gloria Patterson, Mr. Patterson's wife, a retired nurse, Linda Martinez, the basketball kid's grandmother, and Joan Chen Sarah's sister-in-law. "Claire tried this with my mother," Joan said. "The isolation, the financial control. We didn't figure it out until it was too late. Sarah tried to warn you, and Claire shut her down." "How many others?" I asked. The women exchanged glances. "7 that we know of," Gloria said. "All elderly, all women, all trusting. Claire has a pattern. She befriends them through her real estate work, offers to help with finances, then slowly takes over. By the time anyone notices, she's got legal documentation and can claim they're confused." "Why hasn't anyone stopped her?" "Shame," Mrs. Watkins said bluntly. "Who wants to admit their children are robbing them? And Claire's smart. She keeps amounts small enough to avoid triggering automatic fraud alerts, and she targets people who are isolated." Linda leaned forward. "But you're not isolated anymore, and you're not ashamed. That's why we're here. We're going to make sure everyone knows what she did." "I don't want revenge," I said quietly. "This isn't revenge," Joan replied. "It's protection. If Claire gets away with this, she'll do it to someone else. Maybe someone who isn't strong enough to fight back." The article. Linda's daughter-in-law, it turned out, was a journalist for the county newspaper. Her name was Hannah Martinez, and she specialized in elder abuse investigations. When she called the next morning, her voice was professional but warm. "Mrs. Harper, my grandmother told me about your situation. I'd like to do a story if you're willing. Not sensational, just honest. About how financial abuse happens even in seemingly loving families." "Will it use my name?" "Only if you want it to. We can keep you anonymous. But I have to tell you, the more people who speak publicly about this, the harder it is for abusers to operate in the shadows." I thought about the 7 other women, about whoever might be next. "Use my name," I said, "and Claire's." Claire's counterattack. The article ran on Wednesday front page of the community section, "Local Woman Fights Daughter's Financial Exploitation." It was fair, factual, devastating. Hannah had interviewed Paul, gotten statements from the bank, even tracked down 2 of Claire's other victims who agreed to speak. By noon, my phone was ringing off the hook. Some calls were supportive old friends I hadn't heard from in years, neighbors, even strangers who'd experienced similar situations. Other calls were vicious. "How dare you destroy your daughter's life? She was trying to help you, you ungrateful. Family should be private. This is disgusting." I let them go to voicemail. At 3 p.m., Claire showed up. She didn't knock, she pounded. When I opened the door, her face was blotchy with rage and tears. Real tears this time, not the calculated kind. "You've ruined me," she screamed. "I lost my job, my license is suspended, everyone thinks I'm a monster. You stole from me. I was helping you, and this is how you repay me." She shoved past me into the house. "I'm your daughter. I'm the only family you have left. Nathan is my family. Sarah is my family. Mrs. Watkins is more family than you've been in 2 years. She laughed hysterically. "Mrs. Watkins, that old gossip, you chose her over me." "I chose myself over you." That stopped her. She stared at me, tears streaming, and for a moment I saw her as she'd been at 7 years old, devastated when she didn't make the school play. I'd held her, then promised her she was special, that she'd get another chance. Now I saw that little girl had grown into a woman who believed the world owed her everything, and that anyone who disagreed was the enemy. "Mom," her voice cracked. "Please, if you don't retract that article, if you don't drop the charges, I'll lose everything." "You already lost everything when you chose money over integrity." "I'm your daughter." "Then act like it. Admit what you did. Return what you stole. Get help." Her expression hardened. The tears stopped like a faucet. "You'll regret this," she said coldly. "I have connections. I have lawyers. I will destroy you in court. Then I'll see you there." She left, but not before sweeping her arm across my entry table, sending a vase of flowers crashing to the floor. The unexpected ally. After I cleaned up the glass and water, my phone rang with an unfamiliar number. "Mrs. Harper, my name is Dorothy Chen. You don't know me, but your daughter. She took everything from my late husband and me." The voice was elderly, wavering but determined. "I read the article," Dorothy continued. "For 2 years I've been too ashamed to speak up. But if you're brave enough to fight, then so am I. I have documents, emails, recordings, everything Claire did to me, and I want to help." By the end of the day, 3 more of Claire's victims had called, each with their own story, their own evidence, their own courage, finally awakened. That night I sat at my kitchen table with Paul Hanna the journalist and a lawyer Paul had brought in who specialized in elder fraud. Around us lay spread the evidence of Claire's systematic abuse: bank statements, forged documents, email trails, recorded phone calls. "This is a pattern," the specialist lawyer said. "This isn't just your case, Elizabeth. This is potentially criminal conspiracy, organized fraud. The DA is going to want to see this." I looked at the faces around my table, people who'd been strangers a week ago, now allied in purpose. "What happens next?" I asked. Paul squeezed my shoulder. "Next, we stop her from ever doing this to anyone else." Cliffhanger. As everyone left and I locked up for the night, my phone buzzed with an email. The sender, concerned friend. The message had no text, just an attachment. I opened it and felt my blood go cold. It was a photograph of my house taken from across the street. Recent, I could see my car in the driveway, the new flowers I'd planted yesterday, and written across the bottom in red text, "You should have stayed quiet." I immediately checked all my locks, pulled the curtains closed, and called Paul. "She's escalating," he said grimly. "I'm calling the police to file a report, and I'm arranging for someone to install security cameras tomorrow. Elizabeth, you need to be very careful." After I hung up, I sat in my locked house, lights off, watching shadows move across the street. Claire had always been smart, calculating, patient. Now she was desperate, and desperate people were the most dangerous of all. The security cameras went up the next morning, 4 of them covering every angle of my property. Mike the locksmith, who apparently also did security installations, worked with quiet efficiency while I watched from the window. "Lady came by last night," my neighbor Mr. Patterson called from his yard, sitting in her car across the street around midnight. I got her license plate. "That was my daughter." He nodded grimly. "I figured. Called the non-emergency line. Cop came by, talked to her, she left. Just thought you should know we're watching out for you." Something in my chest loosened. I wasn't alone in this. The police report from the threatening photo triggered a restraining order hearing. Paul filed the paperwork immediately, and within 48 hours, Claire was legally prohibited from coming within 500 feet of my house. She violated it the same day. I was in the garden when I heard the car. Claire didn't even pretend anymore. She parked right in front, got out, and marched toward my door. I pulled out my phone and called 911, then pressed record on my camera app. "Mom, we need to talk," she shouted. "You can't do this to me. You're violating a restraining order. The police are on their way." "I don't care. You're ruining my life over money, over a misunderstanding." "It's not a misunderstanding, Claire. It's theft. It's fraud. It's abuse." She stopped at the property line, her face contorted with rage and something that looked almost like genuine pain. "I'm your daughter," she said, her voice breaking. "Doesn't that mean anything?" For a moment, just a moment, I felt the old pull, the maternal instinct to comfort, to forgive, to make everything okay. Then I remembered the forged signatures, the stolen money, the 2 years of isolation. "Being my daughter means you should have loved me enough not to do this." The police arrived before she could respond. 2 officers, one young and eager, one older with tired eyes. Claire immediately shifted, tears, flowing voice trembling. "Officers, thank God. My mother is having some kind of breakdown. She's made these terrible accusations and she won't listen to reason." "Ma'am," the older officer interrupted, "you're in violation of a court order. We need you to leave immediately." "But she's not well. Someone's manipulating her." "Ma'am, step back to your vehicle now or we'll have to arrest you for violating the restraining order." Claire's mask cracked completely. "This is insane. She's my mother. I have every right." The younger officer reached for his handcuffs. That broke her. She stumbled back to her car, screaming obscenities that made Mr. Patterson usher his grandchildren inside. As she peeled away, the older officer turned to me. "Mrs. Harper, I read the report. You're doing the right thing. Keep your cameras running, don't engage with her, and call us immediately if she shows up again." After they left, I sat on my porch steps and shook. Not from fear, from release. The worst had happened, and I'd survived. The hearing. The fraud case hearing was set for 3 weeks later. Paul prepared me carefully. Claire will have lawyers, he warned. Good ones. They'll try to paint you as confused, vindictive suffering from grief-induced paranoia. They'll use your age against you. I'm 58, not 88. To them, any woman over 50 who lives alone is vulnerable. We counter that with the psychiatric evaluation, your financial records, and testimony from the other victims. The courtroom was smaller than I expected. Claire sat at the defendant's table with 2 lawyers in expensive suits. She'd dressed carefully, conservative suit, minimal makeup, hair pulled back. The image of a concerned daughter wrongly accused. When our eyes met, hers held nothing. No rage, no remorse. Just cold calculation. The prosecution presented first. Bank records showing systematic transfers. Forged documents with signature analysis proving they weren't mine. Testimony from Amanda Chen about the fraudulent account changes. Then Dorothy Chen took the stand. She was 81, barely 5 feet tall, but her voice was steel. Claire Harper convinced me she could invest my husband's life insurance payout, Dorothy testified. She said I was too old to manage it myself, that I'd be confused by the options. I trusted her. She took $63,000. When I asked about returns, she said the market was volatile and I needed to be patient. It took my daughter flying in from California to discover there was no investment. Claire had simply transferred it to her own account. Claire's lawyer cross-examined, trying to suggest Dorothy had given permission, that she'd misunderstood the arrangement. But Dorothy held firm. I'm old, not stupid, she said, and I know theft when I see it. 3 more victims testified. Each story was eerily similar. Trust exploited isolation, enforced money vanished. When it was my turn, I walked to the stand with my head high. Mrs. Harper, the prosecutor began gently, can you describe your relationship with your daughter before your husband's death? We were close. Not perfect, but loving. She called every Sunday, visited for holidays. I was proud of her. And after David died, she became different, more controlling. She said she was helping, but slowly I lost contact with friends, stopped going out, signed documents I didn't understand. I thought it was grief. Now I know it was strategy. Claire's lawyer stood for cross-examination. He was smooth, practiced. Mrs. Harper, isn't it true you were severely depressed after your husband's death? I was grieving. That's not the same as incompetent. But you let your daughter handle your finances because you felt overwhelmed, correct? I let her help initially. I didn't authorize her to steal. Isn't it possible you simply don't remember signing these documents? Grief can affect memory. I had a psychiatric evaluation 3 weeks ago. The doctor confirmed I have no memory issues, no cognitive decline, and no signs of diminished capacity. Would you like to see it? His confident expression flickered. The judge, a sharp-eyed woman in her 60s, leaned forward. I'd like to see that evaluation. Approached the bench. After reviewing the documents, she fixed Claire's lawyer with a cool stare. Counselor, your entire defense seems predicated on the assumption that Mrs. Harper is mentally unfit. This evaluation contradicts that. Do you have any other strategy? He didn't. The verdict. The judge took only 1 day to deliberate. I've reviewed the evidence extensively, she began, looking directly at Claire. What we have here is a clear pattern of financial exploitation. Ms. Harper used her position of trust to systematically defraud her own mother and at least 4 other victims. The forged documents alone constitute multiple felonies. Claire sat motionless, her lawyers whispering urgently. Ms. Harper, you are hereby ordered to repay all stolen funds with interest. Additionally, you are sentenced to 18 months in prison, followed by 5 years probation. You are permanently barred from working in real estate or financial services. And the judge's voice hardened. You are to have no contact with your mother or any of the other victims for a period of 10 years. Claire's composure shattered. No, Your Honor, please. She's my mother. A mother you stole from. A mother you isolated and manipulated. The court has no sympathy. As the bailiffs led Claire away, she looked back at me one last time. Not with hatred, with incomprehension. She genuinely didn't understand how I'd won. I met her gaze steadily and felt nothing. No triumph, no vindication. Just the quiet relief of a door finally closing. The aftermath. The story made regional news. Daughter sentenced for elder fraud ring mother's courage exposed years of abuse. My phone rang constantly. Some calls were from journalists, others from women, dozens of them who'd experienced similar abuse from their own children, partners, caregivers. I thought I was the only one, a woman named Margaret said, crying. My son did the same thing. I was too ashamed to tell anyone. You're not alone, I told her. And shame belongs to the abuser, not the victim. I started meeting with these women. First just coffee, then weekly gatherings at my house. We called ourselves the Second Chapter Circle Women Reclaiming Their Lives After Betrayal. Mrs. Watkins, in her final weeks before passing peacefully that summer, attended every meeting. This, she said, squeezing my hand, is what community means. Women holding each other up. The healing. Nathan flew out with his family for Thanksgiving. We hadn't spent the holiday together in 3 years. Claire had always manufactured reasons why it was too complicated. Watching my son play with his children in my yard, hearing my daughter-in-law's laughter in my kitchen, I realized how much life I'd missed. I'm sorry I didn't see it sooner, Nathan said quietly as we washed dishes. I should have fought harder to reach you. She was very good at building walls. Are you okay? Really, I thought about that. I'm getting there. Some days I'm angry, some days I'm sad, but mostly, I'm free. He hugged me, and I let myself cry for the first time since the trial. The new beginning. By spring, I'd transformed the isolation into connection. The pottery classes Mrs. Watkins had suggested became my weekly refuge. I volunteered at the senior center, helping others navigate financial documents and recognize warning signs of abuse. Paul and I started a free legal clinic for elder fraud victims. We saw 3 clients the first week, 15 by the end of the month. You've found your purpose, Paul said, smiling over paperwork. I found my voice, I corrected. Sarah Chen, my old friend I'd lost, reached out via her daughter Amanda. We met for coffee, tentative at first. I tried to warn you, Sarah said. Claire threatened to sue me for defamation. I know. I'm sorry I didn't listen. You weren't ready to hear it. Sometimes we have to save ourselves. Our friendship rebuilt slowly, honestly, better than before. 1 year later, I stood in my garden on the anniversary of Mrs. Watkins' revelation, pruning roses that had bloomed abundantly. The house behind me was full of laughter. The Second Chapter Circle was meeting 12 women now ranging from 45 to 83. My phone buzzed. A letter from the prison. Claire's handwriting. I almost deleted it unread. Then curiosity won. Mom, I'm not asking for forgiveness. I don't expect you to write back. But my therapist says I need to acknowledge the truth, so here it is. I was wrong. Not just wrong, cruel. I convinced myself I was helping, that I knew better, that you needed me to control everything. Really, I was terrified of being ordinary, of not being essential. So I made you need me, and when that wasn't enough, I made you helpless. I stole your money, but worse, I stole your autonomy, your friends, your dignity. And I did it while telling myself I loved you. I don't know if I'm capable of real love, but I know what I did wasn't it. I'm glad you fought back. Someone needed to stop me. Claire. I read it twice, then folded it carefully and placed it in a drawer. Not forgiveness, but acknowledgement. A period at the end of a painful sentence. Epilogue. That evening I sat on my porch as the sun set. Across the street, new neighbors were moving in, a young family with 2 kids. They waved. I waved back. Inside, women's voices rose in laughter. My people. My chosen family. I thought about the woman I'd been silent, shrinking, afraid. She was gone. In her place stood someone who'd learned that love without respect is control, that peace bought with silence is no peace at all, and that sometimes the bravest thing you can do is save yourself. My phone rang. A woman from 2 counties over, her voice shaking. I read about your case. My daughter. I think she's doing the same thing. I don't know what to do. I smiled. Tell me your story. We'll figure it out together. Because that's what we do now. We save ourselves. And then we save each other.